Friends and enemies, welcome back to another episode of the Canadian Bitcoiners Podcast, the mighty CBP Media Network, bringing this to you as always. My name is Joey. In the other panel is my co-host Len. Buddy, what's going on over there? How the heck are you?
I'm okay, Joey. You know what? It's a good day. It's a good day to talk about Bitcoin and Bitcoin-related stories, and that's what we'll be diving into today.
Other notable stories too.
And
don't
other
forget.
notable stories as well. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
absolutely that. But it's going to be a fun day today. But yeah, everything is good. Cold outside, and you know what's interesting, Joey? I put something out yesterday. Tomorrow's garbage day. I put something out. I'm gonna just vent right now because every 2 weeks we have big garbage day. They call it over here in the region of Halton, where we put up big stuff and it gets picked up. I put out a coffee table for free. I put it on Kijiji. Nobody wanted it. I put it outside. Nobody's taking it. Like, it's pretty good coffee table. Glass top, comes with ottomans. Can't believe nobody's taking it. It's gonna go to the dump instead of somebody's house. Why, man? It's too bad.
Would you take a free coffee? Like, what are a lot of people like in need of coffee tables that you find to have no value in your home anymore? Like, I would say that that's an expected outcome for a coffee table.
Perhaps, given the state of this coffee table, it's in good condition. There's no rips, cracks, tears, nothing. And maybe one could probably sell this down the line. But considering there's a lot of people that are hard up, right? Like, if they're struggling to make ends meet, get something for free. Now, what can I say? It's just too bad this is going to go to the dump instead of going. Well, I prefer it. I'd rather this go to good use than the dump. But hey, man, it's going to go there. And yeah, how are things over there, Joey?
I'm great. I'm recovering from my cold here. You can probably hear I'm a lot better. I haven't taken any meds in a few days. I got to be honest with you, man. At the end of last week, Len, Thursday, Friday, I was considering going to the doctor, thinking to myself, like, this is not a cold. Something is going on here. Like, I'm never sick for this long. And when I do get sick, for that long, usually it's kind of waning after a week or so. I was going on 2.5 weeks with that illness. Almost unbelievable for someone, like, I don't want to say someone like me, but like, I still think of myself as 25. I'm 36, but in pretty good health, in good shape, and bit weird. Also, my wife never got sick. I got sick pretty good, and my wife did. And I was talking to a few of the guys on my football team. Got a couple of, other guys who were in pretty good shape around my age, a cop among them, saying like he had it for about a month ago, and it still bugs him. He's still getting the cough, still getting the sniffles, still getting all that stuff. So I was lucky. I had a little bit of an episode, like stomach flu-ish, it felt like, on the weekend. And I thought to myself, like, this can't still be the same thing. But then yesterday, basically felt okay all of a sudden. And then today felt great too. I just want to give a shout out to my beer league team who stuck with me while I was figuring out the quarterback position. Last week, finally, Saturday, I threw 5 touchdowns, no picks. Absolutely throwing ropes all over the field. So I'm happy about that. It's been a good couple of days.
Did you see the Dan Marino clip when he did it was, I saw it this past week. I don't know who posted it, but it was a clip of Dan Marino throwing a football at this moving target that must have been 30, 40, 50 yards downfield.
Just drilling it.
And it was just a single throw he did, and he almost got the bullseye. And the way it was framed, it must have been the 70s Sports Twitter account. The way he framed it, he said, this guy threw for 5,000 yards in 1985, I think it was. If you adjusted for inflation today, that's about 55,000 yards.
He was throwing to off-duty security guards in a time where, they were running for 3 yards of play 30 times a game.
Mark Clayton were good. No, but it was different. It was a run first type league, right?
Oh, big time.
Yeah, so it was just a different type.
People don't realize, Len, how long the run first stuff went for. Like, even in the early 2000s, I'm a big Clinton Portis fan, and I remember, he had 2 really good seasons in Denver his first 2 years. He carried for 1,500 yards his first 2 years in the league. I think he's the only back ever to do that in his first 2 seasons. And he went to the Skins, which is a team I follow, the year after in a trade for all-pro cornerback Champ Bailey. And the Redskins ran him into the ground. I think he carried it 350 times as a 23-year-old back. Can you imagine doing that to a running back now? You never see guys taking more than 250 totes in a season. And certainly they're not just running into, 1,200 pounds of offensive and defensive line. They're usually running to the outside now, sweeps and short toss plays, short pass, screen plays, stuff like that. It's a completely different game. People think it ended in the 70s and 80s. It was going to like 2007, probably, maybe even longer than that.
Defense, are they now smaller and more athletic, or are they?
Oh, yeah. There's hardly ever any safeties above like 220. I think Cam Chancellor for the Seahawks, probably the last really notable roaming big safety. He's about
so there's no
6'3",
Steve Atwaters
230.
out there just coming in and just fucking plowing into somebody.
They're done.
So yeah, so there, it's a different game, right? Like it's a totally different game. But look at this, the equipment, and every time I don't watch NFL at all. This it's maybe 15, 20 years since I've watched, 15 years. And I look up, if I see any picture that shows on my timeline, it's incredible how small the equipment is in comparison to yesterday. Like you look at Mike Allstott, for instance.
Beast, by the way.
He's a very big guy, but his equipment was also big too, right? It just made him appear to be
the
bigger,
neck rolls.
right?
We got to bring neck rolls back. I need to see more neck
Brian
rolls.
Cox. Let's bring him back with that.
We got to get those back. So that's one shout out. The other shout out, Madex. Finally, I got my new Madex hoodies. I'm gonna get up and show you the back because the back is really the coolest shit. I don't know if you guys. I'll try to keep it on the camera here. The teeth.
It's hard to see it, but yeah, we could get a glimpse of it.
Pretty sick. I'm a huge fan of his stuff, and so I bought 2 of these hoodies. I'm glad to support an artist like him and a man like him.
Let's not overlook.
And of course, Mark, bomb thrower side. Speaking of bomb thrower, let's get to the sponsors. EasyDNS, best place for you to host your content. The friendly neighborhood registrar, as Mark always says. He's on vacation right now. He is still talking to me and Len about how to improve his business, and you may see something new from him coming in the not too distant future. We're still working on it, still in the lab, okay, but you got to know that no matter where Mark is on the planet, he's thinking of you. He's thinking of the business, and he's thinking of how he can make things easier for you. We've been using EasyDNS to do our website, thecanadianbitcoiners.com, for some time now, and it's been great. I got to tell you, we post stuff there, we write stuff there. Whenever I, get itchy fingers, I go there and write some stuff that nobody reads, and we post it. And Mark also has a lot of other stuff going on. If you want to do virtual private server stuff, VPS stuff, for example, Bitcoin nodes, Nodeless implementations, Nostr relays, BTC pay servers, whatever. You got a little shop. You want to sell hoodies? Mark will help you. He'll help you take Bitcoin. Mark's been taking Bitcoin for his services for close to 11 years now, I think, right? Is that the number? 2012 or 2013, I think he said, right? So
it wouldn't be much longer than that, given the fact that Bitcoin's only been up.
He's been doing it for a long time. If you want to start doing it, he can help you do it. And on top of that, it's cheap. So you got the best product, one of the lowest prices, and you get the added bonus working with Mark. You can't beat that. Trust me, we know. Go to the website, easydns.com. CBP Media is the code. You get 50% off your first round of buys, or just tell him we sent you, or message him on Twitter and let him know. He loves getting messages on Twitter, I'm sure, from people he doesn't know, thanks to the show. So keep doing it. Keep
just
doing
a random message from somebody. Hey, I heard of you from the Canadian Bitcoiners podcast. Yeah. Well, we do also have Bull Bitcoin sponsoring us. And look at the price of Bitcoin. I can see it now because it's showing on my block clock, 67,700 and change. Might be a good time to buy. Might be a good time to sell, depending on how you look at it. Bull Bitcoin has you covered, depending on which way you want to lean. But not just on-chain. Look at the fees. They're slowly creeping up right now. We're looking at the 30 sats per VByte area. It's still kind of low, but it will be creeping up given what's going on next month. And so they also give you the option where you could buy with Lightning. So buy your Bitcoin with Lightning, it's going to be obviously cheap transaction fees, and away you go. With Bull Bitcoin, you could also pay your bills with your Bitcoin. So if you bought Bitcoin a while ago and you made huge gains in it, you can start spending it by paying your bills through Bull Bitcoin. You could also buy gift cards through Bull Bitcoin with your Bitcoin. So again, if you made huge gains, you want to start spending your Bitcoin, you have the option to do so by buying gift cards and spending that in the real world. And also they have the KYC free buys. Go to the Canada Post, drop your Canadian dollars, and they're going to load up your KYC free Bull Bitcoin account. And with that, you can buy KYC free Bitcoin. Check it out. The spread is the cheapest in the game. It's easy to do. I did a video on it on what's the process. Just do it. And use our referral code below if you already haven't opened up an account with Bull Bitcoin. By doing so, and you fund your account and give them all the information they need, $21 added to your account, no questions asked.
You love to see it. Let's do some housekeeping. I'm going to just go to our calendar here to let people know what we have going on, because I do like telling people what interviews and stuff we have coming up. It's only fair since you guys keep coming back every week.
On Wednesday, I have the gentleman. He's the engineer behind and the brains behind the BitAxe. Gosh, I forget his name. I'm going to try to pull it right now. Scott. Yeah. I don't know what his real name is. I think I could check it out on the invite, but either way, it's Scott 9000, SKOT 9000 on Twitter. And he is the instigator of the BitAxe Bitcoin ASIC miner. Talked about this BitAxe last week, I think it was, or 2 weeks ago. Anyways, a lot of people they liked it. We'll get to dive deep into this. And if you have any questions to do specifically to that, he's the man to ask. And you can send it through us. We'll be happy to ask for you.
Yeah, very excited to hear that podcast. I still do want a BitX. I want to get one from them. Maybe he'll just give us one for free. I don't know. You can ask him when he's on. Scott, please. Jaime Garcia coming on the week after that. I think I'll sit in for that one or do it myself unless you really want to do it. I'm not really up on the El Salvador stuff, but I do want to talk to him about a few things I've heard over the last little while. Terrace Kulik on the 3rd of April. Who is that? Talk to me about this person.
It's a mining guy, Boomer. He's the one who recommended him.
Sunnyside Mining, I think, right?
Yeah.
Is that the
I think so. So if Boomer recommends, to me, that's good enough. It's good as gold. Boomer, you're not in a chat, unfortunately. Hopefully you'll be listening or watching this later on. I just salutations to you, buddy. Hopefully everything's okay, because normally you're in a chat. Hopefully there's nothing wrong. Or maybe you have a meetup today. I don't know. Either way.
He's on a date maybe. He does like to go on the dates sometimes. He did send us a message of one time he was going on a date and he said either we go to the range or we watch CBP at 7:00. Gotta love that. We're on dates with people, Len. How's that?
That's a good date.
If my wife finds out I'm going on dates with other people and not with her, she might be upset.
Well, there's a reason why. I got to say one thing too. I didn't say at the very beginning. The new league in NHL 94, I finished tied for first.
Hey.
Beat the guys in the quarterfinals. I'm now in the semifinals. I'm one win away. Well, best of 7. If I win this series, then I'm going to make it into, I got a free draw into the King of 94. I don't have to pay my way. So yeah, man, I got to just go against the seed number 4. And then they're playing the Blackhawks. I beat them before. I should beat them again.
I'm hyped on that. I'm hyped. So we got Taurus on the 3rd. Then we got a couple of in-persons. I'm going to be talking to, actually not in person. Ryan McLeod's going to come on the 9th of April, Nuclear Bitcoiner. The 16th, Plate Liquor is going to come to my house. We'll do that in person. The 23rd, the Caradzas will come to my house for an in-person.
Hey, I'm going there this Wednesday.
You're also going there this Wednesday, so keep an eye out for that, everybody. Lots of interviews. And then, Len, today I booked April 30th. Did you see David Bailey and Mark Goodwin coming to the CBP for a power hour? April 30th. Yeah.
Hang on.
Strap in.
That's a Tuesday.
It's
Joey,
a Tuesday.
I may just hop in if you don't mind. I have, if I'm free. The weather starts to get warmer over there, so I tend to be less free. But I may make a point. April 30th. Whatever time it is, I don't give a shit if it's even during work time. I'll take that time off. I got some vacation time that I have earned. I may jump in because I have some questions I may want to ask. And I like to ask. Sometimes you ask the horse's head. Other times you have to ask the horse's ass. And we'll just decide which one it is I'll be asking.
I plan on keeping it civil with Dave and Mark. I like Dave and Mark. I know you disagree with a lot of stuff they do. I think I've given them the benefit of the doubt over the years. I don't necessarily love ordinals. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this before, but I do want to get their opinion on a lot of things. And, especially if I think about some of the stuff that's going on in the CBDC world now, they're pretty good on their coverage of CBDCs and the lines between certain people of note and eventual CBDC regimes. So I'm looking forward to talking to them. I know, I mean, you have some questions, I think, on the side of the magazine, which is good too. I mean, those are important questions as well for everybody. But
I got many questions that need to be asked. I'd love to know what their answers are to that. And maybe there could be some dialogue as to why it is that it's the direction they're going. And it's a good chance to ask and find out why.
Yeah.
So maybe April 30th. Yeah, I may jump on again.
It's your show too. I mean, you're more than welcome, as you know. So yeah, let's hop into the stories. We got to start with the Bitcoin stories here. Where are we going to?
I have one boost.
Oh, the boost. Yeah, sure.
There's a problem with the boost. I can't get them all for whatever reason. I could check. Normally, I could check them through the web, and I can't. It's giving me an error. Then alternatively, I could check with my phone. I can't. It's giving me an error. I only get one boost that I see here. We got many boosts. And I'm sorry if you sent in a boost. This is a technical issue.
You've been giving people so much shit about not streaming and boosting instead, and now you can't read them.
Well, anyways, so we have Hodler's Official boosted us 5,277 sats. I don't know what's the significance of that, but he says teams are filling up for the Canadian Bitcoin Conference's Canada versus US Bitcoiners hockey game.
Yeah.
Sign up now if you want to play. Will be a fun kickoff event for all with games, prizes, and more. Check out Hodler's Official on Twitter for more info. And he says, love the pod. Thanks, boys.
I like Corey a lot. I was talking to him a bit in the DMs because I think Brandon from Green Candle is going to do play-by-play for that. I might actually also do play-by-play. I haven't been on skates in a long time. I know, not a good Canadian, but if I get some ice skate. Oh man, that's even worse. If I can get some ice time before the game, I might try and play. I used to play pretty decent hockey. Like I was always, as my dad used to say, you were the best player in the sort of B tier of players. So whatever, that's like the best compliment you can get, I think, from from someone who's watched you play hockey. Anyway, so I'm looking forward to that. Okay, Bitcoin stories. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, we'll talk with the 2025 budget. And I know that this is like, why are we talking about this for Bitcoin related stories? Because there's some nuggets in there that could impact Bitcoin mining on US soil, as well as a few other items in there too. And first off, there's a tax. There's a tax that's being bantied around. It's going to be a tax equal to 30% of the cost of electricity used in digital asset mining, aka Bitcoin mining. So there will be a 30% tax on the cost of electricity used. That's the idea. And this new tax, they're saying, is going to rake in about $10 billion in 2025. And another notable item in the documents here is an item that's going to update wash trading rules. Bless you, Joey.
Thank you.
So it's going to be updating wash trading rules. And they're going to try to stop people from selling something at a loss and buying it back immediately afterwards. So this is really taking aim, I think, at the NFT market. And they say that this is going to create an additional $1 billion in taxes. Now, on the surface, I look at this, seems like a lot of money, $1 billion that they're going to be getting from NFT taxes. Maybe overstating this whole idea, but what the heck do I know? Again, I'm not into this marketplace. I don't know how much money is being washed in there. So maybe they're right. Maybe 1 billion is accurate, but I think it's rather high. Anyways, so I can't speak too much about the wash trading stuff. I'm not sure how impactful that will be to Bitcoiners as a whole. I think it's going to be minimal at best. But the mining tax is something of note that we should definitely be looking at, because we can look at this through the lens of a Bitcoin miner. If theoretically, if you're a Bitcoin miner, you had the opportunity to set up shop somewhere, anywhere. And based on track record, what country or countries would you prefer to do business in? US, Canada, maybe a few others? For me, why are they the top of my list? Stability, political and economic stability that comes along with these countries. So there's far, far worse places in this world to do business. Think about setting up shop in, say, Venezuela. You don't know what's going to happen next year. Heck, you probably don't even know what's going to happen next month. But in Canada, United States, you have a pretty good idea. If you set something up, the government's not going to take it from you. So that's why there's stability here, and it also, as I hear, in Canada and the United States. But what's the result of all this? This idea about putting a tax on miners? Because as miners become less profitable in the US, they're less likely going to want to expand any further. Maybe they'll start looking elsewhere to provide cheaper power, but there may be the hidden cost, namely stability, which I referenced. But I guess one could say, is this an attack on Bitcoin? Perhaps maybe an indirect attack. But we also need to look at this through the eyes of the Treasury Department. They need to squeeze everything out of this. There's so much money that they have to get. So through taxation, they have to somehow fund all the things they're trying to fund. So they're trying to get as much revenue as possible. So this lemon is going to be squeezed as much as possible. And Bitcoin mining, it's a low-hanging fruit, right? Like, let's be honest, how much is it going to impact the general population as a whole? Probably minimal. So the question remains, I mean, come on. It
depends how you frame it. Anyway, what's the question? Tell me what the question is.
So if they're going to tax Bitcoin miners that generate their own electricities, their own stranded electricity, are they going to tax them as well? Like, I can understand if they're plugging into the grid, but if they're generating electricity from a stranded source of energy, are they going to be taxed as well? Are they going to be impacted by a 30% tax for electricity consumed? If so, why? And if so, if they do that, that could also then have a negative impact on the environment, because methane will then continue to be either flared or vented. I don't think it's vented very much these days, but most likely it's flared. But combusting it to generate electricity has a positive impact on the environment. It's arguably far better than just flaring it. So if you're going to be stopping people from combusting it, then, well, there you go. There's a negative impact of this. Now, even further, is Canada going to do the same thing? If the United States imposes this type of nationwide taxation on Bitcoin miners, why wouldn't Canada do the same? Or better yet, like, will these jurisdictions even ask Bitcoin miners to potentially pay taxes in Bitcoin. This is something you suggested a while back, Joey. Not sure if you remember, but this might be a way for the governments to accumulate Bitcoin rather than seizing it. This is what they could just slowly start accumulating a small amount of Bitcoin doing this way. I don't think it's possible, but I look at this. It does seem like it's an indirect attack on Bitcoin, but why would they just do it on Bitcoin miners? There's so many other industries out there that are energy intensive. Are they taxing dryers, the manufacturers of dryers, or the dryers, how much electricity they use? No, this is all political, and they're just focusing their energy on something, like I say, is a low-hanging fruit. They could do it. They have every right to do it. That's fine. But these businesses, they'll just set up shop potentially somewhere else. There could be a cost for this, not just the cost of few jobs, but as I mentioned, an environmental cost here. If you're not going to be combusting this methane, well, let's continue to flare it.
Okay. Let's talk about this excise tax on miners first. I just want to read you something from the from Democrats-budget.house.gov, okay, in terms of the 2025 budget and why they're implementing these taxes. There's other taxes too, by the way. There's taxes on buybacks. They want to reduce write-offs for people who are compensated more than $1 million per year, stuff like this. So there's a lot of avenues through which they're trying to increase tax revenue. Whether that matters or not, I don't know. Honestly, we've talked before about how tax receipts don't come close to covering the budget, obviously, anymore. And also really don't make a dent in things like, entitlements or road maintenance or education, all this stuff. Here's the text. This is a quote. These proposals are part of a broader effort to raise revenue in a responsible way that maintains economic growth while allowing for policies to support families, all while reducing the deficit. Is any of that true?
No, because they're spending that 10 billion will be spent within a matter of seconds. So it's not going to be directed specifically for feeding or helping out the poor.
Right.
It's going to be put in a general coffers and then spent in whatever they want to spend it on.
Right. So we have to look at that and think right away that there's obviously some spin here. In terms of, framing the excise tax on miners, look, the Bitcoin network is resilient now. It's not downable vis-a-vis an excise tax. And there's too many other nation states that will take those miners on because they bring with them economic growth and they bring with them a lot of brain power. Bitcoiners are a smart group. I'm a little biased in that opinion, of course, but I think it's fair to say that we're pretty bright and we've done a lot of things right over the last 7 or 8 years. So I think that that's another sort of benefit for countries who are willing to do the opposite of what the US is proposing here with the tax. The other piece of framing we have to remember, and we talked about this a little while ago, maybe 2 or 3 weeks, so it should be fresh in people's minds. We revisited the White House's directive on crypto mining and crypto assets from, I think, 2021, when Elizabeth Warren and the energy, what does the EIA stand for? Something energy something agency, asked miners in that survey, which was deemed illegal by the courts, or vexatious by the courts. I think maybe even this in some cases. I don't know what the exact terminology was, but when we talk about why this is an attack on Bitcoin, direct or otherwise, look at that framing. They want to turf mining and crypto asset development in the United States. I mean, period, end of story there. There's no doubt about that. There's no gray area, nothing like that. We know this to be true. It's written in the text that they've released over the years. So yeah, this is an attack on mining. The question then is always one of what's going to happen afterward. And I mentioned network resilience, but when it comes to stuff like environmental action, the places that mining would go are almost in all cases worse in terms of environmental regulations than the US or Canada or European nations. The first world, in the sort of strictest modern day definition of the term, although I will admit that that's, a liquid definition these days. These countries all have really tight regs on what you can do in terms of mining, in the traditional sense, in terms of energy expenditure, in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, carbon pricing, things like that. Now, you may agree or disagree with those policies, but they do force selective emissions in almost all cases, right? You can't just, pump tons of CO2 into the atmosphere if you're one of these big companies. Same way if you're a miner, you can't do it. They want to tax that, fine. The problem I have on top of this whole, other countries are worse, is miners, like you mentioned, are just using energy the same as anybody else. This is a targeted tax on people who choose to use energy for Bitcoin mining. I've not seen a tax on people who, build these goon caves and spend all day, playing the skin flute or whatever they do in their basements. I've not seen any taxes on people who play video games too much. If I look at the rig we use for CBP video rendering, that machine's got to take a lot of power. The lights in here take power. All these different things take energy, and they're not being taxed or not being attacked. You mentioned dryers. I think Pierre Rochard and others have talked about things like Christmas lights. Christmas light, quote unquote, emissions, energy use are very high in the modern world. And so for that month or 6 weeks, or in my case, 4 months, the Christmas lights are up, you're using a lot of power. And that power is the same power the crypto miners want to use. At the end of the day, this is a question of, do I have the freedom to choose what I use my energy for? And the only reason you wouldn't is if the energy use was deemed to be illegal. And I have to think, Len, that this is one step towards making this whole thing illegal in the eyes of the law, don't you? It seems like this is the natural next step here, because it's very difficult to make the case, especially in the United States, where law does rule the day more often than not. It's very difficult to make the case that you just don't like something someone's doing with their power, and so they can't do it. If they're paying, they're paying. But this is sort of a punitive. It's a punitive attempt to disincentivize people from spending energy on something that maybe threatens the hegemony of the dollar, maybe threatens the stock market, maybe threatens the whatever. Pick your lever of power that the United States has using the dollar. I think it's fair to say that this is the first step toward it becoming illegal, and people should be paying attention to this stuff. That's why, guys like Dennis Porter get a lot of shit, and I've given him a little bit of shit on this show before. And even when he was on, I asked him, like, why do you think it's a good idea to spend your time? Like, this has become your life's work now. This Satoshi Action Fund, who engages with lawmakers, this has become your life's work to do this stuff. Brian Morgenstern from Riot, who I do want to have on the show at some point. You've made a career of engaging with, political entities that don't really care what you think about whether or not you should be allowed to use the power, because at the end of the day, they just want to make it illegal. As much shit as I've given them, now it's important that even if they're not going to win the battle, in the legislature, they need to win it in the court of public opinion, and they need to win it in the court of law when the time comes. And, as much as the judiciary is supposed to be independent from all these other arms of government and all these other facets of life, I don't think there's any way, shape, or form that, public opinion doesn't help shape what the expected outcomes are in these situations. And so I'm grateful for the work they're doing. I hope they continue doing it. And it's important with stuff like this going on that the work continues in earnest. So, all that said, do you care about this from like a hash rate point of view? I don't. Do you care about it from a price point of view? Maybe short term. But for me, it's like, other countries have tried this and it didn't do anything to the network. I realize the United States is maybe the biggest fish in the pond, but it just doesn't worry me long term. Short, medium term, I mean, a bit, but I think this still only ends one way for fiat currencies and for Bitcoin.
Agreed. And in terms of, is it going to impact Bitcoin at all? Yeah, maybe if anything, short or medium term. And that's, I don't even think it is going to impact it at all at that point. They'd have to do something more drastic than this to really impact Bitcoin on any scale, short, medium, or long term. But long term, I don't think there's any way that they could stop it.
No. And before you continue, one other thing I should have mentioned, Narwhal brought up in the chat, data centers are never included in this either. And that, I think, another set of worries here, and Nick Carter's talked about this among other people. Is this a wedge to regulate AI use at some point? You don't want everyone having access to the strongest or most potent AI tools. And so you say any AI is also excise tax, blah, blah, blah. It's a sin activity now or whatever. I don't know.
I don't think it's going to go that bad, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I am wrong. I don't think it's going to be that bad. Now, in terms of, is this the first step to potentially banning Bitcoin? I don't think they'll ever get to the point.
Just not banning Bitcoin, just mining. Bitcoin banning Bitcoin is done now. It's not doable.
I don't think they'll ban Bitcoin mining. I think they could disincentivize Bitcoin mining by putting on as many taxes as they want, maybe 100%, maybe 200. They can put whatever they want just to make it so hard to do business here. But by doing that, they're saying, look, you can still set up shop. You can still do it. It's just more difficult, more challenging to make ends meet. So I don't think they'll ever ban it. It just doesn't make sense because like you said, it's just, there's other industries, other things that just take up so much more energy or equal amount of energy, like Christmas lights, as you said. Christmas lights, now it does make some people feel good, but in terms of productivity, it delivers zilch to the overall economy. Absolutely nothing. Bitcoin mining, at least there is something you get out of it. There, you every 10 minutes there's the block reward that comes along with it, and so there's something that you could say Bitcoin mining at least can generate money. Christmas lights, hell no. So I don't know. I think this is just funny the way they're framing this. And in terms of galvanizing support and having the court of public opinion support Bitcoin miners, I don't think you'll ever get to the point where you have a lot of people saying, the majority of people saying, yeah, let's, this is wrong. We should turn this around. Because there's so few Bitcoiners out there, and there's even fewer Bitcoin miners out there. There's other things people have, other challenges people are dealing with than something like this. If you propose them, would you rather us tackle inflation, lower your gas bills, lower your food cost, or do you want us to deal with taxing these guys, which will help lower inflation? They'll say, fucking go ahead and do that. They don't give a shit, because there's stuff that's in front of them that they see that's impacting their lives immediately that they want to have fixed right away, than just dealing with it. So this is something that's may have to be dealt with in the courts, but I don't even know if this is even something that could be dealt with in the courts. Is there anything illegal or wrong about this? It's not like that telling them to submit information, which apparently that was wrong because they didn't go through all the processes first. And I think they're going to go ahead and still do that. They're going to dot their I's and cross their T's and still do that. So they're going to, but anyways, it just seems fucked up. And I don't think there's any way to stop what's going on. If they want to do it, that's great. They could do it, but there may be a change in administration. That could be the only thing that could stop this.
We're going to see, because there almost certainly is going to be a change in administration, and whether it's just a, oh my God, we got a bot in the
That's
chat.
in Rumble, by the way. So you can just do that.
Okay. It's on Twitch. Yeah. The thing I would say is that there's going to be a change in administration, either vis-a-vis a vote in November or soon enough via attrition. All these old people are going to eventually retire and die. In the next, 10 years or so, they'll become ineffective and probably be voted out or removed by the party. So, it's a shame it comes to this. Honestly, that's the thing I kind of get down about, that these politicians, they have such a chance to be sort of on the leading edge of innovation when it comes to stuff like Bitcoin. And instead they choose to hold on to power any way they can and put punitive taxes on stuff. Elizabeth Warren tweets out often about Bitcoin mining now and Bitcoin energy use, and does these sort of choreographed tangos with different representatives from big banking about Bitcoin and crypto. And it's so theatrical, but it's not sensible to do this. It sort of demonstrates that they've not done the work on how resilient the network is, and not looked at the other times where someone has tried to remove Bitcoin from existence vis-a-vis disincentives or legal action or whatever. It just doesn't work. If it didn't work 3 years ago, it's not going to work now. And if it doesn't work now, you have to think about, how am I going to embrace this? How am I going to leverage this to my benefit? That's the natural next step, not we have to crack down more and more and more. Although, again, I feel like I say this every week, the sovereign individual predicts exactly this, that the taxes and incentives will come, hard and fast in ways that a common, sort of common knowledge would almost disallow. But, we're kind of getting closer and closer to that. So let's keep an eye on this. It's the usual suspects here.
I don't think it's going to impact anything in the end.
What are we going to do until it comes into play, right? If it comes into play, then yes. If it doesn't, then we, wasted 15 minutes talking about nothing. And that's it.
Well, Bitcoin mining is my opinion that is going to be something that's going to be adopted by oil and natural gas companies, and also energy producers that have excess energy. So if you set up a hydroelectric dam and you have X amount of excess electricity that you're generating, it makes sense. Like they're doing in Ethiopia, for instance. So those are the ones that are going to be doing it. So you could kind of understand what countries are going to be heavily involved moving forward. And if they're not going to be doing it in Canada or the United States, they'll move over to the Middle East. They'll move over to Russia, where there's an abundance of energy. And instead of flaring it or venting some of that, the methane they have over there, or stranded sources of energy, other stranded sources of energy, monetize it. It only makes sense. If you're a company that owns it, if you can monetize something that's not being monetized, totally makes sense. Or a country, the same thing. So that's where it's going to be moving towards, oil and natural. They're going to be the next big one before we get to the nuclear, the SMRs. That's going to be the last thing on the list of that's going to impact Bitcoin miners. But that's my guess.
Let's move on.
Portal wallet.
Okay.
We talked about Portal wallet just last week, and it's the device that uses the NFC to talk to your phone for signing transactions. And one thing I overlooked, I just wanted to bring it up this week, and one listener who would like to remain anonymous clued me in on this one, is that the Portal device, the Portal wallet, does not have a secure element associated with it. So that means that if the device ends up in the hands of someone else, it's easier to break into it without the secure element. It also makes it easier to tamper with. So that's another negative. And even the guy behind the project wrote that the security model of this should be comparable to a Trezor with a strong passphrase. And we haven't talked very fondly of Trezor in the past. So
that's one way to put it.
Yeah. we trashed it quite a bit. So it's definitely a device to consider avoiding, given everything that's been said here, because there are better options with dealing with your on-chain transactions. And that's what essentially this is for dealing with on-chain transactions. I would always suggest use a cold card. It's, maybe a little more challenging to use initially, but once you understand and get the hang of it, it's a breeze, and it's far safer as long as you set it up safely. So just wanted to say that the Portal thing, and thank you to that listener to point out that this does not use a secure element, and that's a strike against it.
Okay, so I tweeted this last week, and I thought I would get a few more responses, but I didn't. Someone's got to explain to me why we're moving toward convenience and mobile phone partnerships in hardware wallets that presumably have some significant amount of your cold storage Bitcoin on them. Shouldn't it be actually getting harder to access your cold storage Bitcoin as time goes on? As the security needs for Bitcoiners increase, shouldn't these wallets actually be moving more toward cold card and further from stuff like Portal and what is Block's product called? I forget. The Pebble or whatever.
Shoot.
What's it called?
I forget. I know what you're talking.
Whatever it is, doesn't matter. The Block wallet, Trezor, Ledger, all these things. You can say what you want about cold card, but even cold card, I think once you get the hang of it, in my opinion, it's pretty easy to use.
Yeah.
Maybe too easy. There's no need for you to have a wallet, a hardware signing device, to be specific here. A signing device is what we're talking about. There's no need. Yeah, Jade Narwhal Tacos is saying in the chat too. Exactly. Blockstream's Jade is another good example. These wallets that are specifically designed to work with your mobile device. I don't get this. I don't understand why we're going in this direction. I realize that there's something to be said about casting a wide net for people who don't know how to use a cold card or don't want to do cold storage in a difficult manner or don't want to spin up their own Sparrow wallet, whatever, right? They don't want to do that stuff. Fine. I get that. But as the price of Bitcoin increases, what you really want is something that's really hard and very rarely accessed in terms of security. And none of these things are going that direction. I would honestly prefer that CoinKite produce a cold card signing device and a matching piece of dedicated hardware that you would store somewhere else in your home or keep in your home somewhere that's also very difficult to access, that also has a secure element, something even harder to access than a laptop, for example, right? I would prefer that to going the other direction and saying, yeah, this is blah, blah, blah. What you're looking at here is just the NFC, tap it, no secure element, or, Jack's thing is, I think, even storing your password or your seed phrase, whatever, in the cloud. To me, it doesn't make a lot of sense. The companies that are the longest on Bitcoin price seem to me to be the shortest on long-term security. How's that possible? We're headed in the wrong direction here, I think. Are we not?
Yeah, we are.
If you're going to use your mobile phone, just use a Lightning wallet. That's really the answer. Use Moon or wallet of Satoshi, I guess, until recently, if you're in America. But that's where
it's custodial.
But Len, the point is that you would use a custodial Lightning wallet with $300 on your phone and not worry about it. Anything else, that's tied to your device that has all your stash on it or some significant part of your stash on it. Why would you use it? The security model doesn't match the convenience, doesn't match the size of your corn stash. It doesn't align, and yet we just keep on going this direction of convenience. I personally don't understand this. Yeah, I don't get it at all. I'm not sure why they're doing this. I don't know who the market is for this other than new participants. And to be honest with you, there's better options for new participants. Blue Wallet's a better option than any of this stuff. Green Wallet's a better option than any of this stuff. Just if you're going to do it on your phone, do it on your phone. The NFC thing is just really a novelty at that point, right? You're just carrying around this other thing in your pocket or on your keychain because you have to have it on you if you want to use the wallet anyway. It's on your phone. So this is what I don't understand. Like, what are we talking about here? None of this stuff makes sense. It does not align. I am so far away from agreeing with this. It's, it's really baffling to me that these guys are going this direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely is. And when I initially were talking about last week, I was thinking that maybe this is going to be something that's going to be used on the go for spending your Bitcoin for everyday purchases, but it doesn't make sense. I was wrong in my assessment because that's using on-chain and it's too slow. And you're right. Lightning would be, at least right now, I know there's scaling issues with Lightning, but right now Lightning is the best option for spending on a day-to-day basis and I just want to say about Lightning, a better option. I know it's more challenging to set this up, but if you set up your own Lightning node, if you have a Bitcoin node, setting up a Lightning node is actually not that hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
You're 90% of the way there. And then if you use Zeus on your phone to connect through Tor to your Lightning node, that's the best because you have custody of your Bitcoin. And so it may be, the $300 that you have on it, but it's still your $300. You have control over it.
Yeah, you could take it a step further for sure. For sure. So, yeah, you're right.
That's what I just recommend.
Like from like the hardware side,
it doesn't make sense. This is for people like Freddy Krueger, or whatever the guy's name. Yeah, I don't know.
This couple is testing some loan products out.
Not only testing the loan, like talk about somebody that just does not get it. He was also mentioning that one of the issues with Bitcoin is, like a cold card, for instance, is you could get SIM swapped and lose your Bitcoin. I don't understand how, the connection between getting SIM swapped and losing your Bitcoin, leaving your keys on the cloud is not the way to do things. Nobody's going to be doing that. It's not the way to do things. So this guy is fucking totally lost. I don't want to talk about him too much, but man, oh man, he's gotten so much press and he doesn't deserve a fucking ounce of it. Thinking ETH is the fucking biggest thing that's going to impact Bitcoin or the biggest threat to Bitcoin. Get the fuck out of here.
I don't get it. Whatever. What's next? What else you got?
El Salvador. Let's talk about some developments that's going on over there, because El Salvador is trying to attract foreign investment into the country, and their Congress passed a vote to reform tax laws, and they've moved to eliminate income tax on international investment and money transfers. Previously, the tax was 30%, and a new tax on those two things are going to be zero. So it's going to be 0% tax on international investment and money transfers. And given the way crime has been dealt with in El Salvador, and insecurity has improved drastically, but this is, at least from my vantage point, it may not be the reality, but from my vantage point, it's sure things are getting much, much better over there. This makes it the improved security plus the removal of the taxes on what I've mentioned makes it more attractive for businesses to enter and to set up shop in El Salvador. So I like that. And maybe we could be the Canadian Salvadorian podcast. Sorry, the Salvadorian Bitcoin podcast, because it's time to relocate there, Joey, and take advantage of the 0% income tax. But not only that, did Team Bukele do that. Team Bukele did something else. They also mentioned that they had $400 million in their Bitcoin transaction, in their Bitcoin balance. Sorry, that's about 57.
One of their wallet account. One of their wallets had that. Yeah,
it's one of them, and it's a little bit less than 5,700. We'll call it 5,700 BTC. It's very, very close to that. They've moved that to a cold wallet in a physical vault within their country. Now, initially looking at that made me wonder, how were they storing their Bitcoin up until that point? According to Arkham Research, or Arkham Intelligence, sorry, it's mentioned that the wallet address where this came from belonged to Bitfinex. So it looks like Bitfinex was custodying their Bitcoin up until now. One of the things I always wondered is that if you're using another outside entity to custody the Bitcoin, there's a potential rug pull that could happen. I think the rug pull would be even greater if the company that was holding onto your Bitcoin was in the United States, like a Coinbase. Let's be honest, Bukele hasn't made a lot of friends over there. But Bitfinex, I took a look. They're actually based in Taipei, Taiwan. So there is connections to the United States, but at least it's not the United States. So with the respect of the number of Bitcoin they moved, and this is based off the transaction information that Bukele provided in his tweet, they've accumulated far more Bitcoin than initially thought. The number of Bitcoin that El Salvador was thought to have up until now was somewhere in the vicinity of 3,000 Bitcoin. This number far exceeds that number, plus they have other Bitcoin. And so how do they get this Bitcoin? Because they can only buy so much given how much dry powder they have, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're selling citizenship or residency through Bitcoin. They're mining Bitcoin. There's other endeavors too that they're using to accumulate Bitcoin. They're very resourceful to accumulate thousands upon thousands of Bitcoin that they previously thought to have had, way more than that. I like this. I like what's going on here. And the fact now they're going to be holding this within their country, this is the way to go. If you're going to have Bitcoin, don't let somebody else take ownership of it. Don't let somebody else custody it. Make sure it's done within your own house. You control the keys. You control the Bitcoin. And man, they're accumulating a crap load. Joey, honestly, it's time. The Salvadoran Bitcoin Podcast. Let's fucking move over there. Let's do it. Enough with the CBP stuff. SBP all the way.
So here's a fun list for you. Do you know what the list of countries looks like that have the lowest income taxes on foreign investment around the world? You know what that list looks like?
I can't even fathom what it would be.
Cayman Islands. Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You know what they're famous for?
United Arab
Emirates, 0%. Bermuda, Bahrain, St. Kitts and Nevis, Andorra, Montenegro, Hungary, and Macedonia. I don't know how many people are going to Macedonia, but some of those
from Macedonia.
Some of those countries, you recognize those because they've become over the last little while places where people want to park their money, want to grow their wealth, and want to shelter from, what they consider to be oppressive tax regimes. El Salvador is making the right move here. You can agree or disagree with a lot of the stuff Bukele does when it comes to gang violence and Bitcoin and all this stuff, but this is how you build an economy that's based on foreign investment as a sort of way to bootstrap growth. You take away the taxes on foreign investment. This is a great opportunity for people who think who have faith in this guy and his ruling style, and they want to be a part of what he's doing over there. And even better if you have a Bitcoin slant, because he'll help you with that too. This is good stuff, man. It's great to see. It is great to see that these countries like El Salvador and hopefully some others are starting to really take seriously not only Bitcoin as a form of wealth preservation and this kind of digital gold / means of exchange / all these things. That's good. But then when you add to it that they're taking other action to bring in not only intellectual firepower but resources in this fashion, you can't beat this, man. This is really, really strong. And I ate a lot of crow on my prediction that El Salvador would crash and burn with the whole Bitcoin thing. They did anything but. And I look forward to seeing the pieces from the IMF talking about how it's actually not a good idea to lower taxes on foreign investment. And this is going to be bad for El Salvador long term. Those will probably come out in the next 3-4 weeks, if I had to guess. And they'll be eating crow just like I was, a few months back over my prediction. So I'm happy to see this, man. I wish the best for those people. I've seen so much in the last few weeks. I went down a bit of a rabbit hole after watching Julian's recent documentary on Costa Rica on Bitcoin Beach and all this stuff in El Salvador. These are people who just want a fair shake. And I think haven't gotten it thanks to, the global monetary regime, let's call it. Those are kind words. I think they're close to getting it now, or a lot closer to getting it now, that fair shake, than they were before that. And Bitcoin is a huge part of that. And Bukele is a big part of it. And I think policies like this are going to be a big part of it too. It's great to see.
How long before I'm talking about El Salvador, starts lending out wealth to countries of lesser means? They're accumulating their own, right? It's going to be a matter of time before they out IMF the IMF and started issuing the Salvadoran drawing rights, the SDRs, to lesser countries versus the special drawing rights.
Salvadorian
it's just a matter of
drawing rights. Wow. Geez.
Why not?
Print the shirts. That's great. That is great.
Do it. Let's do it. Craig Wright. Let's talk about him.
You want to?
because the verdict
Is he in the news? Is he in the news?
Yeah, this past week, the verdict is in for the Copa versus Wright trial. And Judge Mellor is, well, I'm going to quote what Judge Mellor said. And this is straight from the CoinGeek website. So I know Craig Wright is litigious. And if he wants to come after me, I'm just reading what's on the CoinGeek website. So if he wants to go after anybody, go after the CoinGeek people, which is owned by Calvin Ayre, by the way. So
Yeah.
Dr. Craig Wright is not the author of the Bitcoin white paper. Dr. Craig Wright is not the person who adopted or operated under the pseudonym Satoshi Nakamoto. Dr. Craig Wright is not the person who created the Bitcoin system. And Dr. Craig Wright is not the author of the Bitcoin software. That's pretty damning. A more lengthy verdict is going to be coming very, very soon. But that brief synopsis basically says he's not Satoshi. This is what it's saying. Can't come after me. I'm just reading what's on the CoinGeek website. So yeah, man, that's pretty fucked up. All the bullshit that he has put through people, looking at Hodlnot and looking at Peter McCormack, for instance, there's probably several others as well.
For sure.
It's I don't want to say like, the turnabout is fair play, but it's interesting to see that, that there is some harmony in the universe. If you do bad sometimes comes to you, and then all shit evens out in the end. So it's this is interesting to see the verdict by Judge Mellor.
I'm happy to see this. One thing to keep an eye on. I know that a lot of the core devs were victim of the chilling effect when he started coming for core developers on Bitcoin. Do you expect to see a bit of a surge in Bitcoin core development?
It'll be the same thing. Let's be honest.
Wow.
I don't think he was deterring people from coming in with their real name or even a pseudonym.
I think he was.
I think he was.
Yeah, Hodlnot seems to think that too. So I think it's something to keep an eye on. Like, are we going to get a lot more traffic on the core dev side? Maybe we do, maybe we don't. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I in any case, I'm happy to see that people are not going to be worried about this kind of looming or lurking litigious individual. It sounds like anymore when it comes to Bitcoin. I think the deal is done, right? It's pretty close to done, if not done already.
So it just got some information from a previous story we just talked about, the El Salvador story. I know we talked about it just a few minutes ago. Jaime told us that BitGo was their custodian. So there you go. So
okay.
BitGo, just some. Yeah, so I don't want to say anything more about Craig Wright, just in case he might come after us. But again, I'm just reading what's on the website from CoinGeek, and yeah, if he doesn't like it, go after Calvin Ayre.
Yeah.
And by the way, he disappeared. I'm not sure if you saw that. But
he did. I'm glad to see this, man. I am. I really think this is like so long overdue. It's been dragging on for many, many years at this point. Many dollars and sleepless nights and sanity, given up by a lot of good people over this. So let's hope this is the end of it.
Ocean Mining, they are about to start payments using the Lightning Network. And this is a screenshot that was posted on Twitter that shows now there's Lightning rewards that's how you're going to be earning your Bitcoin if you mine through them. And you could change your threshold. I'm not sure what the minimum threshold is. There's a slide bar over there that you could do for lower or higher, but it does say that lower thresholds receive on-chain payments faster. So it makes sense, but I'm not sure how this works with Lightning, if there's going to be very, very low fees. I'm not sure exactly how it's going to be done here, but this is the third company we've talked about, Bitcoin mining company, or pools to be specific, that has included Lightning payouts in the past 2 months. I know we talked about Brains Pool, another one, I forget the name of them, I'm sorry. And now we're talking about Ocean Mining. So this seems to be a growing trend in the Bitcoin mining community, that they're going to be allowing their users to receive payments through Lightning rather than on-chain. So fees are going to be lower, the minimums are going to be lower, and it's just going to be a steady stream of Satoshis coming to you. Like I mentioned with last week with Brains OS, the same thing applies to this. As long as there's going to be lower fees and lower minimums, it makes sense then to start heating an area of your home or more areas with S9s, because right now an S9 doesn't do very much. But if you're going to heat an area of your home with electricity, you might as well look into using an S9 to do that, because by doing that, at least you're going to get some Satoshis, kyc-free, might I add, with certain pools through mining like that. So it just makes it more economical to start mining at home and to heat areas of the home with an S9. But now we're approaching the middle of spring, and it's not going to be worthwhile to do anything these days. But you may want to start setting up shop just in case for the winter time, because who knows what's going to happen. S9s are probably going to be still readily available, but they're older equipment. If you do order one, it could be trash. You might have to reorder it. So if you're going to start doing it, start heating an area of your home with an S9, start the process now. Start learning how to do it now, because once it gets cold, then you can take advantage. Some free sats. If you're going to heat it anyways, electricity, you might as well do it with an S9.
Yeah, exactly. I like this a lot. I don't know how much, hash rate Ocean will end up with. I think they're 1.7x hash right now or something like that. So they're, kind of small fish for the moment. But, the thing about mining, and this ties back into the story we led with, the excise tax on miners in the States. The thing about mining is that you need it to be both strong and decentralized. So by strong, I mean the hash rate, and by decentralized, I mean you need a lot of the hash rate to come from non-industrial miners, or maybe even industrial miners who are mining overseas predominantly, as opposed to in the United States or in these less friendly jurisdictions. Let's say Ocean, for all the things I think it's doing wrong in terms of market forces and product market fit, and there are some. This is inarguably good, right? Because you can get your rewards faster, and that will drive people onto your into your pool. That will bring people into your pool. I think this is a huge thing for them. I'm surprised that more home miners haven't been asking for this. And it's either that home miners are more interested in like sort of the hobby aspect and don't care much about the rewards, or the home miners may be disengaged from this whole thing, or the home miners don't need the Bitcoin right away. But I think this is going to become the standard for a lot of places, right? If you're pointing your hash to a different pool that's not Ocean or Brains or whatever the other one is, F2 maybe. I'm not sure who the other pool is, but if you're not getting Lightning, if you're not able to pull your Bitcoin via a Lightning payment channel, aren't you going to go to a place that allows you to do that? I think you probably will at least think about it, right? This is for sure something that was on the fringes for a lot of people, but now has become an option. And for someone who's got, 1 or 10 or whatever miners sitting in their basement, or you're heating your house, like you mentioned, maybe with an S9 or an area of your house with an S9, I think this is probably your best fit now. Is it not?
Yeah, but everybody else is going to be offering this as well.
Yeah.
Sorry. I think most others are going to start offering this. What is Ocean Mining doing wrong in terms of your opinion about?
Well, we talked before about like the transaction stuff, and do they have an ordinal view? Yeah, they do. Like,
but they offer 3 different options.
I know they give a few different choices. Yeah, so you can
just right now. Ultimately, the user is going to have whatever option they want. They could use whatever template they could generate for themselves. So right now, there's 3 different options. If you're pro-ordinal, anti-ordinal, they got you covered. So I can't see what they're doing that in terms of pissing people off. They're doing the right thing. I hope they succeed. To be
option, yeah. I hope. No, don't get me wrong. I hope they succeed too. We need more outfits like this to succeed, and for Bitcoin ultimately to become this uncensorable network of financial freedom. You can't be relying on Hut and Marathon. You just cannot. I don't want to dunk on Hut too much, but man, I see in the Hut subreddit the like whimpering and crying and whining about shareholder value related to what Hut's doing, and all these guys who own publicly traded miners now, they're all clamoring for like data centers and AI and gamifying and all this stuff. Like these miners are subject to the whims of retail investors who just don't understand how Bitcoin mining works and how important it is to the network. They just don't get it. They're looking at bottom lines, and Ocean and other mining pools, Brains, whatever, like these guys who are running arguably for the right reasons, let's say, you got to support them. Even if you disagree with some of the stuff they're doing, even if you disagree with whatever about them, you need stuff like this for Bitcoin to succeed long term. And I hope they succeed. Of course I do. Yeah.
And they're the fringe comparing to like the foundries of the world. They're like bottom feeders right now. They may eventually grow to be something bigger, but even as they grow, like something like Ocean, if they're going to be offering the individual user their own templates that they could use, then it's not really just a collective pool. Like then it's individuals mining. I don't know. It's mind-boggling how decentralized Bitcoin mining can be, especially when you have a mining pool that has decentralized as their focus. I love what Ocean Mining is doing. I hope they succeed. They're far, far better than Marathon. If I have to choose Marapool, for instance, and if I have to choose between one or the other for succeeding, I wish all the success towards Marathon. Sorry, towards Ocean Mining. None of the success towards Marathon and the Marapool. Those guys are bad actors. Fuck them. But we'll do one last story, I guess, before
Sure.
I don't have too much on. I'll leave it up to you if you want to talk anything about it, because MSTR, they just said they're going to be a proposed private offering of another $500 million.
Yeah.
They're
let's talk about okay. So let's talk about debt issuance here. We'll do debt issuance last story. Because you know who else issued convertible notes?
No,
Coinbase.
Oh, and yes, you're right.
So there's some discussion about, is Coinbase going to start mirroring the MSTR strategy? Are they finally taking a page out of Saylor's book? Saylor obviously has done everything. He's issued stock. He's diluted shareholders. He's done convertible notes. He's done all kinds of stuff, right? And he's done it to the tune of about 1% of the Bitcoin available Bitcoin, let's say, or total Bitcoin. I don't know how much of it is actually available these days. People are not selling.
So it's going to be 1% of the overall that's ever going to be mined.
That's what I mean. The total, yeah, the total, not just the available. So Saylor's doing convertible notes. The expectation on Saylor's part and the part of his board, and clearly the part of his shareholders. I mean, say for today, I think MSTR dropped almost 20% today. But the general feeling on MSTR is like, look, I want more Bitcoin per share. I don't care about dilution in terms of my ownership of the company. I don't care about dilution in terms of, risk, or I don't care about risk as far as convertible notes or debt issuance. I don't care. I just want the Bitcoin and I want to have some claim to it. What that claim is remains a little nebulous. I got to be honest. Mike is not given a great explanation for that, in my opinion. You're a Bitcoin development company. You're going to have capital to deploy, blah, blah, blah. I get all that. But at the end of the day, MSTR, I don't think is the best vehicle for Bitcoin exposure. That's my view. Now, Coinbase, on the other hand, issued their debt last week. And as far as I can tell, in like the investor reports, there's nothing there about buying Bitcoin. It's to refinance old debt. It's to do mergers and acquisitions. And it's to, cover operational expenses and prevent share dilution. They don't want to do share dilution yet. And so they're going to do this first. I don't think they have to buy Bitcoin yet. Coinbase is a company that has, incredible cash flows, even in down markets in terms of crypto trading, crypto asset prices, excluding Bitcoin, of course, when I say that. These guys are still crushing. People are still willing to degen into just about anything. And they even launched that layer 2 thing, Base, that allows people to do, whatever, spin up other bullshit on their platform. I don't think they need to buy Bitcoin yet. But what I don't get, Len, is why, like this day and age, the Coinbase investors, and I would include myself in this, even though I don't have tons of Coinbase stock. The Coinbase investors have to be asking themselves at this point, you're issuing convertible notes, you have good cash flows. Why aren't you adding Bitcoin to your balance sheet? As the FASB rules loosen up, as the fair value accounting rules loosen up, presumably as custody rules are going to start loosening up soon too, in terms of what you can report as an asset and liability on your balance sheet. Banks are having trouble with this, obviously. You want to have Bitcoin on your balance sheet and you're just not doing it. You are otherwise, whether your CEO tweets about it or not, you are otherwise long Bitcoin in a way that almost no other company is. All the other stuff on your platform relies on Bitcoin remaining a stalwart, a flagship, and a feasible asset for the world over. But you won't put it on your balance sheet. Even now in the debt offering, you still won't do it. I think they're going to have to answer this question on the next quarterly call, I would imagine. Why? Why are you not doing it? What is the hold up when you've seen how successful not only the MSTR strategy has been in terms of price, appreciation, and corporate value, but I mean, the share price, man, like the MSTR is like what, $1,500, $1,600, something like that, or it was last week. I don't know what Armstrong's answer for that is going to be. He doesn't have a better
look
idea.
At unit price when you're looking at the shares of, look at market cap.
I know, but I'm just saying, like okay, but we could talk about price or we could talk about performance. MSTR is outperforming Coinbase big time, right?
I can't tell what Coinbase is doing. I haven't followed them. Are they getting close to their all-time high?
No.
MSTR is nowhere near.
Coinbase is like, I'll tell you right now, because I got a bag, because people in the chat are saying,
is that MSTR?
Coinbase is $239 right now. I think it IPO'd at $400. So you're
Slightly
still
less. I think it was like 350-ish, give or take.
whatever. Like,
So it's relative. It's within the same ballpark, I'll say.
but I would say you're down bad compared to MSTR. Coinbase, I'm going to try and say this in as dispassionate a way as I can, because truly, I don't have enough Coinbase to move the needle.
You know what MSTR's all-time high was?
Before this?
Yeah.
I don't know. What?
It was the .com.
Yeah.
Over
also
3,000.
So it was probably pre-split too, right? That's probably the pre-split.
Well, according to this chart, it's less than half.
Yeah.
Unless this deals with the split, I don't know. But if it does, it's less than 50% of the all-time high where they are right now. Coinbase is closer to that. So
yeah,
but Coinbase, it's a much more narrow. I'm not trying to defend Coinbase.
Well, no, and I'm not either. Like, clearly the management of Coinbase is, I think, suboptimal. And the thing I would say to Coinbase, and I can't imagine this guy is not hearing this from people in his life or his board. Like, we should be the vehicle for Bitcoin exposure in the S&P 500, not fucking Sailor. And we're not, because you refuse to talk about Bitcoin, mistake. Refuse to put it on your balance sheet, mistake. Continue to propose all these dumb fucking ideas about shitcoin tokens and making it easier to list, mistake. Continuing to try and pull the legislative ladder up behind you so no one else can compete, mistake. Sailor has done all the right things. Armstrong has completely dropped the ball. And to be honest with you, as a Bitcoiner and as a shareholder, I think the guy should be fired. I think he should be fired. Like, what is his excuse at this point? The Bitcoin price just hit an all-time high. You're still half of what you fucking IPO'd at? 3/5 of what you IPO'd at? What's your excuse? What is it? Is like, if I go,
they're a shitcoin casino.
No, for sure. It's a garbage company. It's a garbage company, but they should be able to figure out that, like, we can still be stupid with all our product offerings and put Bitcoin on the balance sheet and grow the stock, like grow the performance of the stock.
Millions of dollars setting up an NFT marketplace type.
I know. Remember that? And then what did it traded like $1 million in the first like month or something. Like, no one cared about it.
Volume was so small. So they put their money in the wrong horses.
Yeah.
If they stuck to Bitcoin and just dealt with that, they would have been in a far better position. But they wanted to grow. They wanted to have mass appeal.
Stupid.
Now they've done so, but there's a cost to it. In terms, and I'm not just Coinbase raising capital, in this case debt, MicroStrategy doing the same, but they're using it for two different things. It's a dangerous proposition to do that, because you never know what's going to happen. Now, one can make an argument, MSTR makes sense, leverage as much debt as you can, especially cheap debt, because you're getting very favorable rates, and buy as much Bitcoin. There's still a risk to that. There is some risk to that. As for how much, it's debatable.
Yeah.
As long as the price of Bitcoin is above their buying price, I think they're averaged at $33,000 per
They're
Bitcoin.
way above now.
So they're way, but then on the flip side, if things go like really, really bad and Bitcoin's stuck in the 15s to 20s again for a long period of time, what does that look like to MSTR? We're a long way from getting there. We may never get there again. So I'm just trying to say, like, when you take on debt to buy something, there's an element of risk, and they've done the math. They figured it's worthwhile to do this. Good for them. But personally, I like using profits. I like using money on hand that you generated. It's outside of debt to buy stuff. That's the way I look at things. But then again, that's why I'm sitting in the basement, still working 9 to 5, doing my thing, and I'm not living on the high like Sailor is. So maybe I'm doing it all wrong. Who the fuck knows?
Let's transition over to notable stories. If you're with us on video, hang in. We got about half an hour to go here. Notable stories, lots of them. If you're hanging with us on audio, wait till tomorrow, and we'll drop the other half of the episode. Until then, take care of yourself.
Don't be a cock.
1 hour, 8 minutes, 56 seconds. Okay, where do you want to start with notables?
Sure. We'll be quick on this. So Janet Yellen is in the news this week because Fox News and other outlets too, CBS, a whole bunch of others, because they're reporting that she is starting to think that a soft landing just may not be possible. We've been talking about this for some time. This may just be more of a dream than anything else. And she's also coming out and saying she is regretting that she said that inflation is transitory.
That's the funniest thing, man.
That
it's sad, but it's also like, it is pretty. You gotta admit, seeing her on TV, like, cop to being wrong about that is significant, I think.
No, so I'm gonna side with her here.
Okay.
I honestly don't think she believes it was transitory all along. She was saying that because she was in the position she was, and her association with the White House, it made sense politically to say that, to try to ease the market, to try to instill some confidence in the general population. She got her PhD in economics a long time ago, in 1971. Granted, it was a different time back then, but also it was at a time when hard money was in existence. She went to Yale as well. She went to Yale. That was, you can say what you want. That's a prestigious school. So I don't think she is obtuse. I think she understands what the fuck is going on. I think a lot of what she says is just because it's politically advantageous to say what she says. So when she's talking about transitory, I don't believe she believed that. I think it was just, she was forced to say that just because of a variety of different things. And now it's becoming a real problem because there was a poll done by CBS News back in December. I know it was a few months ago now, but that poll back then in December was showing still inflation was number one issue amongst people that were polled. And that beat out immigration, which seemed to be one of the hot topics and hot issues these days. But still, inflation is still number one in people's minds as of December. And I don't think things have changed very much since then. So I'm looking at this. They have a long road ahead, both the Federal Reserve and the Treasury Department, to righting the ship. Soft landing, it is not in the cards. There's no fucking way they could do this without wrecking the economy. There's going to be some collateral damage along the way. Jobs are going to be lost. There's going to be a lot of fucking problems coming along. But this is the reality of it. They painted themselves into a corner. They can't keep rates high the way they are. They're going to have to eventually lower them. May not happen the next meeting, but eventually they're going to have to lower rates. Not just because it's an election year, but also it's getting costlier for them to service the debt. They're paying more than $1 trillion a year, the United States is, to service their debt. It's already unsustainable, but they can't keep it like that. They got to somehow lower the rates to lower the cost of servicing the debt, which may buy them a little bit more time to keep this thing running. Eventually it's going to fail, but that's what they have to do. They got to somehow lower the borrowing costs and the interest rates and all that shit. But man, oh man, I kind of feel bad now for Yellen after hearing all this. I'm actually starting to see her as, I'm starting to feel bad for her.
You think she's a sympathetic figure in all this now?
You know what? I think she's put in a bad position. They inherited. Yeah, you could say. You took this off. Put that shit back on, Joey. Put that on, Joey.
Listen,
when they came into power, the economy was stopped. QE was going nuts. What could they could have stopped QE sooner, but they were fucked to begin with, and so they didn't help themselves out. But let's be honest, they weren't in a position that they could have continued success. It was fucked to begin with. Their decisions fucked it even further, and here they are. A lot of the decisions were political, but she's not a dummy. She knows what's going on and she understands.
I'm not saying she's a dummy.
I'm not saying you are, but some people they look at her and they mock her and all this. But fuck, she does understand. It's just everything is just wrong, and just she has to make these.
Yeah, you know what? I'm turning over a new leaf. Okay, I'm not going to be mean. This is like, to me, I understand that she is a political animal, okay? And I understand that there's value in calming the market during times of turmoil, specifically the time of turmoil we had in 2020. That was crazy. Stock market went limit down twice in the same day. Bitcoin dropped 75%. You're talking about negative prices on crude contracts. And I get that there's value there, of course. But the problem I have is that when you say things like that, it influences the behavior of people who are not smart enough to know that what you're saying is meant to calm markets and not meant to be actionable advice. And so when people do things like, take out big loans, or quit their job, or do other things that would imply, actions that would imply that times are otherwise stable and the landing will otherwise be soft, and then you tell them 3 or 4 years later that you wish you hadn't said that and things actually don't look like they're going to be so soft now, where does that leave the average person? It leaves them in a yeah, I was going to say a tough spot, but you're right. That's another way to say it. And so
they were
what do
fucked
you
to begin with? There was no way around it. When
the
they
problem
started
is
QE,
the
it was
problem
done.
is the problem is the, you know, sort of the rate at which they are fucked now, right? The speed at which they are fucked has accelerated, right? And to, you know, sprinkle that word in for the first time this show. So why should I feel bad for Janet Yellen? I understand that she was put in a tough position. Of course, we all were, Len, but I wasn't able to say and do things that I thought were untrue. Instead, I had to make decisions that are going to affect me for the rest of my life. You know, I've renewed my mortgage twice since COVID. I bought a house. I moved. You know, I've done a lot of things since COVID that I had to make decisions based on what I thought was best. And unfortunately for me and for many people, I couldn't look to the people who were at the podium or in the press gaggle for accurate information, because I knew and you knew, and people who listen to and watch this show know, you know, even though we weren't doing it at that time, you know, we know that there's a reason they speak this way, and that the people who are up there are not necessarily there to tell you the truth, but are rather there to pacify you in some cases, or calm you for the moment, right? Put a little rum in your bottle, as the saying goes. It doesn't mean long term it's going to be accurate, or, you know, it doesn't mean long term that the intention wasn't to just quickly mislead you or misdirect you so that you avoid a catastrophe in the immediate future. And now people are paying for that in a big way, big way. The layoffs we've seen in the last, you know, year in tech, the layoffs we've seen in journalism, layoffs we've seen in trucking, layoffs we've seen in all kinds of places, US, Canada, Europe, everywhere. You know, do you think they see Janet Yellen as a sympathetic figure?
No, they don't. The reality is, a lot of bad decisions were made before she came in and after she came in.
Yeah.
But not just by the Treasury Department, not just by the Federal Reserve, but also the general population as a whole.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot of people were funding lifestyle on credit card. Maybe they're doing so based on her words, or maybe they're doing so just based on poor financial decisions.
I get what you're saying. I'm with you.
There's a lot of everything that's wrong. It's cumulative decisions up until today that got us to this point. It's not one particular person that is to blame. It's everybody.
It isn't. No, you're right. But I'm saying, like, for the average person, okay, the weighting that those decisions during COVID should have had, you weren't able to accurately gauge how much you should be weighting those decisions because of the information you received from people like Janet Yellen. And so you made decisions that you otherwise perhaps would not have made. Now you're right. Some people would have made them anyways, right? There's a lot of people living beyond their means and doing things that are irrational.
They've been doing that long before COVID. And
broadly unwise. Yeah, exactly. Right. Since
just higher interest rates just makes it more challenging,
right? So there's all these things to consider, but I don't view her as sympathetic, and I don't view Powell as sympathetic. I think that Powell is doing his best in a lot of ways, but I think in other ways he's, you know, also trying to, you know, to tame the crowds. He's a guy who's sort of dancing. He's a marionette sometimes, it feels like, you know, like he's doing what is best to get the crowd laughing and smiling and trying to keep them from leaving the theater. But I think everyone's got an eye on the exit now, right? So hypothetically and figuratively, or sorry, literally and figuratively. So, yeah, I don't know. I disagree with this take. I don't think these people are sympathetic. I'm not sympathetic to them. I hold them in some respects in contempt, but also I was bright enough at the time to realize that that's their job. But so many people weren't. So many people weren't, right? Everyone was worried they were going to die of COVID and, you know, among other things for a year. And, you know, now they're realizing, well, yeah, I did some other stuff during that year too that I kind of whiffed on because I didn't give it the thought it deserved. I just listened to what I saw on TV. Well, you know, here you are now. So hopefully you don't make that mistake again. But again, not too much faith, right? That's the model a lot of people use, and they've used it for many years, as you mentioned.
She's going nowhere, by the way, too. So that's another thing, that she's going to stay in that position until there's going to be potentially a change in administration, and then they'll assign a new person in that position. So she's going to be there until the bitter end, and then she's going to go off into the sunset, do her speeching engagements, making six figures for every time
she'll be balling for sure, 100%.
Yeah, and just like, you know, the former presidents do, just, you know, people want to hear. Didn't she also to a speaking engagement not too long ago.
I don't know. What do you think we see
She was
first?
paid
Think we
quite
see
a bit.
a rate cut in the United States or a Kate Middleton public appearance?
Is she away?
My wife thinks she might be dead. I don't really follow the Royals, but I know there was a Photoshop picture of her that the press refused to run last week or 2 weeks ago or something, and the Palace had to walk it back and say, "Yeah, sorry, this is Photoshop. She's not actually in the picture." Like pretty bad. So
Why is she gone?
I have no idea. She got surgery or something. Somebody in the chat will know for sure, but she got surgery or something like that and just never came back.
This
I
shit's
don't know.
beyond me. I don't follow that.
So you don't know? You don't have a
nonsense.
bet? Is this on can we get like a predicted market on this? Predicted.com?
If I had to guess, because
Kate Middleton public appearance or rate cut
versus
in the United States.
it's for me, it's a coin flip because I have at least somewhat more knowledge on one topic and the other one I have zero knowledge. So for me to formulate an opinion, which is going to come first, I'd rather flip a coin and let the odds dictate it that way. So I have no clue. There's going to be, I could say that you're probably going to have, it's maybe like 1 or 2 before the election. It seems like they're going to be waiting a lot longer for cutting these rates, both in Canada and the United States, for a variety of reasons. And that's interesting because a lot of people were talking about it being, there's going to be cuts. Shit, we should have had it already, some cuts.
Yeah.
So man, this is messed up. Now, is there any chances they could even raise rates? I think that's still there's a possibility. Like very, very slim.
Wall Street Journal or New York Times ran an article today that or yesterday. Today or yesterday? I guess not yesterday, it was Sunday, but recently about how the US economy still seems to be on solid footing and maybe conditions aren't restrictive enough. We really need to knock things down. Keith Thicker on Looney Hour last week saying that if he was Tiff Macklem, he would raise 50 points at the next meeting and just set the whole thing on fire and wash out the leverage and wash out the garbage and wash out the ill risk. And
but what's the end goal there? Because the risk will eventually come back. It's not like it's lost forever. You
need to reset. You need to get rid of all these bubbles and you need to get rid of all this garbage in the economic data. And the only way to do it is
fiat.
The only way to do it is to burn it down. I get what you're saying. Like to rely on, interest rates is basically the key lever, not fundamentals, not growth, not, anything except basically M2 and interest rates. This is the way it's been, right? This is the way it's been for a long time. We're only coming to this realization as a Bitcoin group, in the last 10 years, but yeah.
What do you think is going to happen with the election down south? Do you think that Biden is still going to be the Democratic nominee?
Yeah, I do. And I think that if he gets on the same cocktail, whatever was on during the State of the Union and the debates are only an hour and a half, I think he could win, honestly. How's that?
I could you repeat that? I want to make sure I heard that.
I think if they put him on the same cocktail he was on during the State of the Union and he's lucid for an hour and a half with Trump, I think he could win. I think he could. I don't know. Trump. I think he's a good politician, and I don't think he's this evil guy that everyone says he is. But on a debate stage, he needs his opponent to be rattled. Clinton was rattled in all her debates with him, and in the last election, Trump tried to rattle Biden. He couldn't do it, and the feedback was that this guy was just trying to interrupt him all the time. In the second debate, he didn't interrupt Biden at all, and he was on that lucid cocktail, and I thought he handed it to him. And he looked good in the State of the Union the other day. I disagree with the politics, but from the delivery, I know from the point of delivery and coherence, you can't tell me he wasn't all there. Engaging with the gallery, again,
I don't care, man.
I don't think this is this is not the baseline for Joe Biden at this point. I don't think any sane person believes that, but if you can get him on whatever, let him sleep for 2 days, put him in the cryogenic chamber. Like, I don't know what they did.
No. You have to feed him softball questions, and you have to steer the conversation away from all the contentious issues to even have a hope in hell for him to win a debate, because there's so much material that could be brought forth to show why it is that he is not a good person to run the country for yet another term. And it's not like this is ancient history.
Yeah.
All they have to do is just bring up shit that's going on right now. All the money that's being spent towards Ukraine, all the migrants coming over, look at the economy, which, you can say is doing well. It ain't, there's still so many people out there that are suffering. And there's so much shit out there that you could bring up and just engage people's emotions and
Yeah,
just draw upon. And Trump could do that.
he
And
could, but
fuck, man, if I had to say there's a chance that Biden could win an election, it's like the Leafs winning the Stanley Cup this year.
I think it's a lot higher than that, buddy. I got to be honest with you. I think it's
They're
a lot
both
higher
zero. They're both fucking
I,
zero.
I think it's a lot higher than
Statistically,
that.
there's a chance, but
I
the
mean,
reality, there's fucking nil.
not to get too far afoot on politics here. Maybe we can bring on our American friends to talk to us about it. I would love to bring on like a sort of dyed in the wool Democrat to talk to us about it, because we don't get the other side of that coin a lot in Bitcoin. But
I had a chat this past week with, so I can't say too much.
yeah, tell me after.
Yeah, and
but I will say
biting
that,
my
like,
tongue is all I gotta do.
yeah, look, man, from a political point of view, and to tie it back into Bitcoin, okay, you don't need you don't need a Trump presidency as a Bitcoiner to be successful with your Bitcoin bag, because I think that the policies from the Democrats are more favorable to inflation, they're more favorable to a ripping stock market, they're more favorable to paper wealth than maybe the Republican platform is, only because it seems like the more we have, and it's just, I think it's a lot of left-leaning politics these days, and here too. You know, you could say what you like about the political scene in Canada, but generally these days, left-leaning politicians want to put money in the pockets of voters, and that's proven to be inflationary over the years. COVID's a good example. And when there's an inflationary environment, or an environment that's friendly to asset bubbles, Bitcoin benefits. It is a liquidity vacuum. There's, good and bad about that, and we're seeing Bitcoin perform in an environment where there's not tons of liquidity from the average person or from retail. But make no mistake, man, if you get another, 100 billion, 500 billion, $1 trillion over 4 years in the pockets of people, we cancel debts, we cancel loans, we do all these things, raise minimum wages, all this stuff. That money's got to go somewhere. And I think a lot of it's going to go into Bitcoin, and that's good for Bitcoin. So from the perspective of someone who holds Bitcoin as a store of value, I don't really care who wins. I don't think it changes the direction. The inertia on this cruise ship is so it's so strong now that maybe you get changes on the fringes, but generally speaking, you're going to be going the same direction domestically for sure. And it is what it is at this point. The interesting thing to think about, and I mentioned this to you and the Bull Bitcoin guys in our chat last week. The interesting thing to think about is, if you look at the policies that are being put in place, all over the modern world when it comes to stuff like immigration and sort of what some people would call buying votes. I would just suggest that, these guys are really serious about winning one election, but I don't think it lends itself necessarily to winning more than one. And so I just wonder why they're so concerned about one election and not maybe the future of elections. Something to ponder
4-year
there.
cycles.
Yeah,
And it always plays by 4 years.
something to ponder there, I think. But we don't have to talk about it on air.
Well, China, I mean, I just want to talk about that really quick. China, if you look at the way they're planning things, it's with a much more long-term thinking. It's like a 100-year plan. That's lacking in other countries as well. They're not looking that far in advance to try
For
to
sure.
improve
For
things.
sure.
And not to say that China is doing things that are good. I'm just saying, with that type of thinking, you're aligning your focuses in a different way. Instead of trying to figure out what's going to happen this year, next year, you're looking at what's going to happen 20, 30, 50 years and how to improve people's lives then. Is if you look at what's going on in China, like if you really break it down, look at the past 20 years, 30 years, how things have changed, improved. I would say yes.
Yeah.
Because so like roads have been built, skyscrapers have been built, subways, airports. It's a modern society now. It's now like 30 years ago was nowhere near like this, and they've done this all very, very quickly because they have a long-term vision. Oh well, we'll talk about. Let's go to Notable North.
Sure.
And we can be quick because we don't have too much time. Peterborough. I'm not sure if you saw this story that came out, but they're tackling the homeless situation over there with a different approach. And it's almost, if you look at what they're offering the homeless, it's almost like a glorified garden shed. That's the way I'll describe it. Maybe that's a wrong way to say it, but it's not very, very large. It's very, very small, like a garden shed, more permanent structure though. and they're charging people less than $600 Canadian a month to use it. And they even say that drug use is allowed over there. So the people that are homeless, that are, they're unfortunately they're addicts, they're still able to do their thing over there. So they're not going to suffer from withdrawal. But apparently, this is something that is so successful that other mayors are calling the mayor of Peterborough to try to see if they could implement the same type of setup in their own neck of the woods. Man, they're fucking garden sheds, though. Like, that's what they are. They're like, but this is what we're moving towards. We're moving towards like these trailers. You ever see that home you could buy from Amazon that they just drop ship it to you and you just...
I looked at it. I went to Amazon and looked at it, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what it costs, like $20,000-$30,000.
Yeah.
That's what we're going towards. These like cheap, small, cookie cutter type situations. I don't know. It seems like it's going in the wrong direction.
We've talked about this. Let me talk about this from the point of view of the drug use first. You guys know I'm on the board at Wayside House here in Hamilton, and we take very seriously this idea that supervised use and safe supply are they're oxymorons. They don't work. Safe supply makes it out into the street, it gets sold and causes further overdose deaths. There are no examples of safe supply centers producing good outcomes for communities or the people who use them. There's a video circulating that you may have seen on Twitter that, I'm not going to share, but you can find it. I think Adam Zavino tweeted it out, of a safe supply house in British Columbia. It's a flop house. It's people who need support, need help, and are getting anything but. They're just getting drugs and being left alone to use them, and basically trying not to die while they get high on what's been called safe supply. Insane. So that's one problem. When you put people who have substance abuse problems in tiny homes, you're basically just moving the tent city, right? It's a sanctioned, subsidized tent city now. So instead of the tents coming from Canadian Tire, you're actually paying for them as a tax base and getting the same result. You're still getting an unsafe area. You're still getting no additional GDP support. You're still getting danger in the streets. You're still getting drug abuse. You're still getting overdoses. You're still getting all these problems, and you get nothing back, except that maybe you get your city park back, and someone else has to live with this in their backyard now. Great. I would also argue that since those tiny homes are in lower income areas, you're more likely to get a spread of that lifestyle through osmosis than you would be if those tiny homes were in high income or high education areas. They would never be there, of course, because that's a tax base that no one wants to piss off. And that's a tax base that's well-versed in influencing well-versed in influencing municipal policy. So you'll never get those houses in those areas. The problem when you put them in houses that are low income is you're already in an area where people are more likely to adopt that lifestyle if things go sideways for them. This might be difficult to hear, difficult to say, but it's true, and it's demonstrably true. In fact, Hamilton has this problem, and I'm sure Toronto and other major metropolitan areas have this problem. So you're not getting any benefits. Now, if you want to talk to me about, well, this is more dignified living, I would tell you to fuck yourself, is what I would say. And I would say that for a couple of reasons. And I mean that wholeheartedly with every ounce of my being, because I've seen this many times over the year working at Wayside House, the importance of putting people in situations where they can succeed. And if you don't put people in situations where they can succeed and you don't give them the tools to succeed, they will fail. A roof and a door are not tools to succeed. It might be part of the equation, albeit a small part in a lot of situations, but these are not tools for success. And when you talk about what it means to live, and I tweeted this out the other day, and I'll say it again here, things like living have meaning. Living is being in a situation where you have a job that's fulfilling, or at least not demeaning or degrading, that allows you to put a roof over your head in a community where you can contribute and volunteer and raise a family if you like, and have a fucking dog and some leisure time and contribute to the growth of your society, the growth of your town, the growth of your community. This doesn't do any of that. It doesn't do any of that. It is a jail cell in a place where people need anything but this type of closed in quarantine with other people who are of the same mindset and suffer from the same problems. You're going to get the result that you expect to get, listener, viewer, when you put these people all in the same boat with no supports around them. You're going to get the same result. everyone talks about insanity being, defined by trying the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. This is what I see here. I hope that we don't go this direction in Hamilton. I hope we don't go this direction in Burlington. But, to your point, Len, mayors are looking to sweep this kind of thing under the rug, and they don't want it in parks. They don't want it near schools. This is exactly where they want it. They want it in low income areas where nobody goes anyways. And they want the problems contained more than they want them solved. And it's a sad state of affairs, but I think a lot of this stuff is just beyond debate.
It's the easiest way for them to deal with it on a short-term basis. Just set up these small homes, almost as somebody was making somebody was comparing it to Bubble situation where he has his cats and everything. So it just set it up and instead of having a homeless, as you mentioned, in parks or whatever, just have them, at least they have a roof over their head. And then from there, you could try to tackle the issue. I don't think that the issue will be tackled. It's just, you're just sort of moving the problem from one area of the city to another. But at the very least, there's an opportunity for them to take or to pay for cheap rent, cheap real estate.
Who's paying? Do you think people who were living in tents before suddenly have the means to pay rent when they move?
That's what I was going to get at.
Of course they don't. Of course they don't.
The people that are paying this, I don't know who the heck is going to be doing it. Like if you're really down on your luck, you don't have the money to pay for this. So you're whatever it is, it's fucked up.
It's not a good situation. I know I said I wouldn't be mean. I don't mean to be mean to these mayors, but man, you have to look around and ask yourself, what am I getting for this initiative? What are these people getting for this initiative? These are people like you and me. They're down on their luck.
Man.
Yeah, they deserve better than
they were born. They were babies. Then they were. These are fucking people.
Yeah.
Right. Something
they need support. They need support. And I understand. Don't get me wrong. Okay. I'm not a bleeding heart. I understand that some people are beyond help.
Yeah.
I know that. I know that. But it doesn't mean you don't try. You don't just half-ass it and then say, well, look what we did. We built these, bubble shacks. It was comically funny to live in a shack 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And now living in a shack is municipal policy in some cities in Canada. How's that for a shift in the Overton window? Does that worry you? What's the next 20 years going to look like?
Well, I could give you a glimpse into what that's going to look like because the Toronto police, they're saying out there to avoid conflicts with thieves, one thing that you should consider doing is leaving your keys next to the front door. So that way, if they are going to break in and take the keys for your car, at least there's not going to be a confrontation to take the keys, take your car and run away. And it's a cleaner way of doing things. And
cleaner way of getting your property stolen. Yeah.
Yeah. So that it's incredible that they're even suggesting that, but there's a rash of car theft that's going on throughout Canada. And somebody mentioned, I don't know if I said this in the show before, but somebody told me that there's even people that saw cars in Nigeria with Ontario plates still on it. And they stole it, they shipped it to Nigeria, and they didn't even take the plates. They just left the plates, the Ontario plates still on it, and they're driving around over there. It's a fucked up situation. And that's why, if you have a newer car, be careful because, you never know if you're going to get that thing. So that's why I'm happy I drive the beater because who the fuck's going to want to steal it? Number one. Number two, nobody can fucking drive my car. But yeah, I'm a big fan of the beaters, and hopefully everybody else is going to do the same thing. The beige Corolla, that's the way we got to go, man. But there should be a spike in the price of beige Corollas if we're all going to start buying it. So I might have to go to Cavaliers or something else. We'll see.
I'm looking for a clip that I saw of Polyev talking at a campaign.
Is that the one where he's talking about the
car theft? Yeah, the car theft. So he
talked about that in the House of Commons.
Yeah, so I'll break it down. He went to Brampton or something or Burlington and was talking to community leaders there, and someone brings up this story of he had his car stolen, and he had an AirTag in the car and was able to trace it to a rail yard, and got to the rail yard.
It's even funnier than that. He had his truck stolen first.
Yeah.
Then he got it replaced by insurance.
Yeah.
His replacement, he decided, you know what? I'm going to take action and be proactive and put an AirTag on the replacement truck. Did that. And that was 2 stolen.
Yeah.
And that ended up in
He follows the air tag to a rail yard. And when he gets to the rail yard, one of the CN guys or whatever, comes up to him. I don't know if it was CN, but one of the guys in the rail yard comes up to him and he's like, "Thank God you're here. I just tracked my stolen car. It's inside this box car, this rail car." And the guy goes, "Whoa, buddy, slow down. You can't be here." He fines the guy, issues him a fine for being on whatever private property, I guess, or rail property. And then the thing ends up overseas. Another guy, another video I saw the other day, or today actually, it was taken the other day in Toronto. A guy, or not in Toronto, in it was in like, I want to say like a rural community almost, but the people who live in that city will for sure be mad at me if I call it that. I can't remember the name of the city, but it's like 6 guys breaking down a deadbolted door, a door that's deadbolted from the side, like the way you would normally deadbolt, and from the top. And they spend like a minute kicking this fucking door down, breaking the glass, kicking the door out of the frame. They grab the keys. They go to the back of the house. They identify the car they're looking for. It's this Rolls Royce. They take the car. The guy's got an alarm going off, spotlights on, a gated lockup. They just ignore all of it. They all get in the car. They bulldoze the gate and they drive away in the car. Like that's a pretty brash robbery. And I get what the Toronto police are saying there. I think it was like, if I want to just defend kind of the public facing constable, that's not an enviable job, by the way, to do media for the police. Especially this day and age. I know that all too well. It's difficult to answer those questions on the spot. What he's saying is, if you want to avoid being shot or stabbed by a guy who has nothing to lose, who just wants your keys, if he's already broken into your house, just leave the keys by the door and it'll help your odds. Fine. I get that cops aren't going to be able to help you with a home invasion generally anyways, right? It's going to be too late when they get there, even in the best case scenario. But there is such a thing as reading the room. And the concern that a lot of people have is for their safety. And what they can't understand is, in an environment where police forces are asking for greater budgets and they're being told that, they need more money, cop to pop ratio is down, blah, 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 violent crimes are up, they get a lot of pushback. There's no pushback. There's always pushback. Why are the police raising their budget? Here in Hamilton, Chief Frank Bergen parried questions from our counselors. Some of them I thought were pretty poorly thought out. And
how much are they raising it by percentage-wise? Do you know?
I don't know. I'm not sure off the top of my head. I mean, you could look it up, but
somewhere in the line between 7 and 12%.
That's average. That's average.
Right.
That's
like
average.
That's inflation.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And you can't fault anybody for, because everybody's trying to get that 5.
And they're asking for these things for reasons that are becoming more and more clear every day. And people in the press can get upset about, well, look, I can't believe this idiot cop said this. Well, if I look back in your newspaper, am I going to see that you guys published a story about why the police shouldn't get a raise in their budget? Am I going to see a story about how we're discriminatory in our policing practices? Am I going to get a story about how certain neighborhoods don't get enough police surveillance while others get too much? Am I going to see those stories? Because if I do, then I don't want to see stories about how the police guy flubbed the answer about violent crime. These two things are two sides of the same coin. You can't tell me that you want to raise the standard of living for everybody, and then as the standard of living goes up in some neighborhoods, people who don't have that standard of living come to your house, steal your shit, and don't get caught, and you're not allowed to chase them down, engage with them, or expect the police to do anything similar to that. That's not good for growth. People who want nice things want their nice things protected by property rights. And property rights, if not enforced by the person who owns the property, need to be enforced by the people with the monopoly on force, the police. And if neither of those parties can enforce property rights, there are no property rights. Then you have a problem. That's when you get breakdowns of society, when property rights no longer exist, sort of prima facie, right? Like at first glance. And when you don't have property rights, people leave. People leave. Productive people don't want to be in areas like that. Look around the world. If you want to see the most easily, the two data points that are most easily correlated, it is property rights and GDP. Those are the two big ones. They're always together. They never stray. Okay. Tight, like white on rice. Okay. this is the beginnings of a problem with property rights, in my opinion. And it's something we should be keeping an eye on. It's something productive people will not stand for. And as digital nomads become more common, it's something they won't hang around and find out. They won't fuck around and find out, as the saying goes. They'll just take off, right? They don't want to have to chase their car with an air tag to a rail yard to have some guy tell them they're being fined for being on private property. It's not a desirable outcome, and it's not one that people will stand for.
And I'll reiterate that I'm a big fan of treating the disease, but in this case, it's the easier way to treat the symptom. Get a shitty car. Get a shitty car that nobody could drive. Make it stick, for instance.
My fucking car died on Friday. Fucking speaking of shitty cars, or died on Saturday. Now I'm maybe in the market for a new car.
You?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you got a newer car.
No, my wife and I just bought an SUV because her car was cooked.
Yeah.
And now my car is fucked too. So please donate. Please boost the show.
Joey needs a car.
Help me get a 2010 Kia or something. I can drive the 10 kilometers.
Oh, that's new. Wow.
I'm driving an 07. I'm driving an 07 right now. So
that's still new, man.
what was the new tech in 2010 that didn't that wasn't 2007s? I don't know. Bluetooth decks by default, maybe? Is that the big change? I'm not sure. My deck doesn't have Bluetooth. There's nothing.
I had to put an aftermarket head unit, so it has Bluetooth hooked up. So now but yeah, like, and mine's old too. My car is so fucking old that the parts were designed in the 90s, because the first model year of my car was in 1999. So the parts that they were manufacturing for that from the factories, they were designed in the 90s. That's how old my fucking car is.
Classic.
But it works. And that's what you got. You got to find a car.
Toyota. Paulie in the chat saying Toyota. I was looking at Kia.
Toyotas are good.
Maybe I will look at Toyota. I would buy Toyota. I'll buy anything, man. I don't want to spend any money.
Something mechanically fine with a good deal of rust on it. You want it to look awful. You want something. You can leave the key in there. Nobody's gonna fucking touch that car. But you know, it's when you turn the key, that motherfucker starts and it goes. That's what you want. You don't want something that is mechanically shit but looks good. You want
they got some bangers here. You can get a 2014 Elantra GL with 122,000 kilometers. Guess how much, Len?
What year? Sorry,
2014 Hyundai Elantra GL.
7,500.
9,900. That's not bad. I just need a car to get around when it's raining. Honestly, I'll just walk or ride my bike otherwise.
Narwhal driving a 92 Ford F-150 is
insane. That is being diesel? Long Bitcoin. That is being long Bitcoin. You love to see that. Paulie now telling me not to buy it. Okay, listen, we're wrapping this show up. Okay, I got shit to do, which includes editing this program and now also shopping for a vehicle. So we gotta get off this. Do you want to just give me closing thoughts?
Go to the train yard and just find some new car over there. So give the guy a few extra bucks and you're good to go.
Hey, buddy, I just want to check out what's in
it comes with plates and everything. It's already registered.
That's so good. I love that. Good night and God bless everybody. We'll see you Wednesday. Till then, take care of yourselves.
Don't be a cuck.